Hello and welcome back to my beginner tutorial series. Previously we've learned how to write a GLSL shader using Atom Editor. We're now ready to take what we've written and bring it into Synesthesia and add audio reactivity into it. Let's load up Synesthesia, and as I'm sure you're well aware, let's check Synesthesia is using the correct audio driver to pick up our sound. We can do that by clicking the cog icon on the left for settings, then next to the audio driver, set the correct driver for your setup. To create a new Synesthesia scene, we'll access the library by clicking the icon on the left that looks like 9 boxes. This is our scene library. Here we can see some of the preset scenes Synesthesia ships with, which are fantastic by the way, do check them out. To create our scene, at the top of the scene library we'll click Create New Scene. This will create a new scene in your library called New Scene. It may be followed by a number if you've added a few. If we click on this scene, over in the preview window we can see a nice colour gradient. If we then click on the pencil icon highlighted as Edit Scene, it will open up the scene's required files stored within a folder called Synesthesia Scenes on your hard drive. Before we begin editing this scene, I just want to quickly talk about the 3 files that are created. First we have the main GLSL. This is the file we're going to edit back in Atom Editor, and in a few moments we'll be copying our GLSL code into it. Then we have a PNG titled new_scene. This image is used as the thumbnail in our library. We can change this to match our scene once we've got it running in Synesthesia. The JSON file is simply a file we use to store data about our scene, such as the name and author, as well as add controls. It is written as JavaScript object notation, which is different to GLSL, but it'll be really simple to understand and edit. Let's begin by editing our main.glsl file. To do this, we'll right click on the file and open with Atom. If Atom Editor was installed correctly, you may see the Atom Editor logo as the file thumbnail, which means you should be able to open it in Atom by double clicking on the file. Looking at the code already in the scene, you may see some similar words, vec2, vec4 for example. We'll be replacing this shortly, but what we have in this scene is we're creating a coordinate system using vec2 position, whereas we've used u_resolution or gl_threadcore.xy divided by the u resolution. Synesthesia simply uses _uv in its place. Then we are drawing our colours directly within the vec4. The red channel is set to the x-axis position, which gives us a gradient on the axis. The green channel is set to slider 1, which is a user control defined in the scene.json file. Essentially, we can control this amount with a slider inside of Synesthesia's control panel. The blue channel is set to the y-axis position, which gives us another gradient on that axis. Then the final one means we don't have any transparency in our scene, so it's fully opaque. We'll start by making this scene our own by opening up our original GLSL file into Atom as well. So find your original file and open it up into Atom. You'll want to keep open the main.glsl. Opening up your file in Atom will put it into a new tab at the side of your other file. So now we should have 2 tabs at the top. The first one says main.glsl. We need to remember that this is our Synesthesia scene, and then our other file, which for me is called box.glsl, is my GLSL code I made in the last video. Comparing the two, the first major difference between the two is that within our GLSL file, we start the actual fragment shader by using void main, whereas the Synesthesia file uses vec4 renderMain void. The second difference is that in our GLSL scene, we define our output using glFragColor, followed by a vec4, whereas Synesthesia simply uses return and then a vec4. Looking at the line vec2 position equals _uv, we're not going to need this for our scene. Therefore, we can either simply delete this line of code or turn it into a comment. So we can comment out lines by simply adding 2 forward slashes in front of the line we want to turn into a comment. This may be useful for yourself if you want to keep this for the future. We can also add a little note just so we know exactly what it is we've commented out. Let's copy some of our code from the GLSL file we created in the last video into our Synesthesia GLSL file. back to the original GLSL scene. Fortunately, we will not need the two uniform lines at the top of the code, as we do not need to declare these in Synesthesia. Instead, I will copy everything within the void main curly brackets, everything except the final line gl_frag color, as Synesthesia already has that sorted for us with the return function. So we're copying everything from vec2st down to color multiplied equals boxfix semicolon. We'll paste our code inside the curly brackets and above the return vec4. And we'll give ourselves some line breaks, and I'm going to paste it above the commented out line. The last thing to change is we'll copy the final values inside the vec4 at the bottom to be the same as our original vec4 line. Therefore, we'll replace the vec4 position.x, slider1, position.y, 1 with vec4 color, 1. We need to save this file, and now moving back to Synesthesia, we can check our file to see if it works. So save your file, jumping back into Synesthesia, where we see editing new scene on the right hand side, just below our viewer. If we scroll down to console output, we can check here that our scene loads, and Synesthesia will give us warnings if anything doesn't load or compile properly. Pressing Ctrl and R forces Synesthesia to reload the file. We should see that our scene loads. However, we get two red warnings. One says u_resolution is an undefined variable, and the other says uTime is an undefined variable. This is because some of the functions we use in GLSL are different in the format Synesthesia uses, so it uses its own format called the Synesthesia shader format. If we check the documentation online, we can see we need to change our coordinates and time. Looking at our Synesthesia GLSL file, we need to replace the st equals gl_frag chord.xy/u resolution with Synesthesia's equivalent, which thankfully is just simply st equals _uv. So we'll replace that line inside our main.glsl with _uv. Last thing we need to change is to replace u_time with Synesthesia's time in all capital letters. Further down, where we have uTime written inside the brackets of abs, cos, and then brackets uTime, we'll use time in all capital letters. This will get our oscillating color to work. And if we save our file and once again press Ctrl and R back in Synesthesia, we now see our box being displayed and the color oscillates. You should also now see that our scene loads successfully without any further warnings. We actually have a rectangle now, as our canvas is no longer a nice square in the original GLSL, but instead a video resolution, so you may wish to form your box by adjusting the values inside the step brackets. So jumping back in, let's just fix some of these values. So replacing the 0.8 in the first line with 0.7, and then replacing the 0.2 with 0.3 on the second line. Because we're only needing to adjust the sides of the box, we can leave the top and the bottom as the same. So save and reload, and we should now have a more squarer looking box. It's not going to be perfect, but it's on the way there. This is looking great now. Let's make it react to audio. This is where all of our hard work will begin to pay off. To make our shaders react to audio, Synesthesia gives us many uniforms we can use to replace values and drive them with audio. Looking at the Synesthesia documentation under audio uniforms, we can simply swap the numbers within our step function with any of these uniforms. I will replace both my 0.7 and 0.8 value with syn_hits. And of course, save and reload. Playing some music, we can now see two corners of our box reacting to our music. Specifically whenever we get a peak in the audio, so it takes a little bit of time at the first beginning of the song for Synesthesia to recognise where the peaks are. To get the other corners reacting to music, we need to replace the 0.3 and 0.2 value with syn_hits. However, when we do this, our box turns invisible, and this is because with the 0.7 and 0.8 values, we replace it with a value that animates from 0 and peaks at 1. Whereas with our 0.2 value, we need the value to start at 1 and peak at 0, so work in the inverse of this. We can fix this by doing some basic math. So where we have our 0.3 and 0.2 value, we'll replace this with 1 minus syn_hits. Save and reload, and now we have our box scaling up on the hits of the music. You can try replacing syn_hits with another uniform such as syn_base hits, so your box only reacts to base frequencies, or syn_level, where your box reacts to the loudness of your audio. Okay, with this video we learned how to take our GLSL code, bring it into a new Synesthesia scene, check it's compatible with Synesthesia's requirements, so their shader format, and we've added audio reactivity to it. In the final video, we'll look at the final touches we can add to our scene. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the final video.